Hello all, Shadwell here, ready to talk about the next film in my collection, Cujo from 1983. It's directed by Louis Teague and stars Dee Wallace and Danny Pintaro. Stephen King wrote the novel that Cujo is based on, also called Cujo, the same year as my birth, 1981. This movie was released in 1983, the same year as two other major films based on King's work, Christine and The Dead Zone. First off, Cujo is a story about a couple things, but most famously it follows the murderous exploits of a rabid St. Bernard dog as it terrorizes a corner of Castle Rock and, more specifically, Donna Trenton and her son, Tad. Because of that plot point, it'd be easy to put up a bunch of photos of the rabid St. Bernard because that was the majority of pictures I found from this film in an internet search, but because I love dogs and don't want to do that, here are a bunch of pictures of St. Bernard puppies that are rabies-free. I've heard this film oversimplified as being about the punishment of a woman for cheating on her husband, and I gotta say that I hate that interpretation. Although Stephen King admits he was so deep into his alcoholism that he doesn't remember writing this book, I'd hate to think that he wrote Cujo as a morality tale. I mean, the problem is, after you hear that theory, it's really hard to see the film for anything else, especially when you're trying to focus on anything other than a sweet dog turning rabid and becoming a terror. Which means I poisoned the well for anyone listening to this review, but I didn't want to deal with the comments section talking about cosmic justice in this film. Sorry in advance if you watch or rewatch this film after hearing this review, so let's change the subject. One thing that really impresses me about this movie is how it is a great example of showing as opposed to telling. I remember in the book there is constant references to how hot it is in that Pinto during the bulk of the story, and yet in the film never once do we hear any complaint about the heat. They strip off layers of clothing and they sweat plenty, but no one comes out and says anything about it being hot out. I really thought that was good script writing. I also gotta say that this film was a lot less traumatic than I thought it would be rewatching it. I saw it as a youngin' and in my 20s before my husband and I had either of our dogs, and I've always been scared of this film, but it was a lot easier to separate the film from reality. I was pleasantly surprised with that. I'm also glad that this film changes and fixes one big problem in the novel that I was not a fan of, which is all part of why I'm giving Cujo a B+, because it was still a little distressing, but not nearly as much as I thought it would be. Tomorrow we finish up the Child's Play franchise of films, finally, when we watch Cult of Chucky. See y'all then.